I'm in love with my married boss. What should I do? Says a viewer who brings in a very interesting question. A question that I think pertains to what I would call the Romeo and Juliet Syndrome. So, a lovely lady, thank you for your question, by the way, you know who you are, writes in. I'll share her inquiry with you. I'm in love with my married boss, and I can't love anyone else. And the plot thickens. I've worked with him for a few years. We've developed a friendship and an emotional connection. I'm almost certain he likes me back. Then he got into a huge fight with his wife, over our friendship. So he then disconnected from the friendship, the boss did. And this lovely lady goes on to say, she has no desire for other guys. She compares them all to her boss, her idealized guy, and all the other guys fall short. So she's not interested in anybody else. And she concludes, should I settle for someone who is less perfect for me than my boss? I could barely read that last line. Thank you for bearing with me. I appreciate you writing in this very honest question, and I'm sure it is a very challenging situation to go through. Why am I calling this the Romeo and Juliet Syndrome? To me, the Romeo and Juliet Syndrome has two primary characteristics. First characteristic is we become very attached to someone who we can't have. He's your boss, he's married, wants to stay married. You can't have him for all intents and purposes. Second characteristic of the Romeo and Juliet syndrome is we idealize the other person. What do I mean by that? Basically, I mean we make up a story that the other person is perfect. And we believe this story. Why do we do that? It is far easier to make up a story that someone's perfect who we can't have compared to someone who we can have. I mean, if you've ever been in a relationship for at least a year, you find out pretty soon into that year that the person you're with sure as heck is not perfect. So someone who there's always going to be a distance between because you can't have them, it's easier to see them as perfect. In other words, it's easier to be delusional about them. And I'm not saying that to be critical. I'm the president of the delusional club in humanity, so absolutely we're all delusional. And I think my opinions here I'm sharing with you are just a call to action to not believe your stories as much, to allow yourself to be delusional, but see that you're being delusional rather than being delusional about being delusional, which means when we're delusional about being delusional, means we believe we're not delusional. I'm delusional and it's okay. That's what we're going to say at all the delusional anonymous meetings that we all need to attend. So I would ask you to really challenge yourself here. And it is a challenge, what I'm about to ask you to do, because I know you have emotions. I know you have hormones that go with the emotions. And I know you have stories that go with the emotions, that go with the hormones. And all these stories, hormones, and emotions feel true. They look true. They sound true. And you think they're true. So this is a great challenge. It's asking you to betray something that you feel, think, and see is true. Only if it feels like a worthy challenge to you. I can't tell you what to do. But the challenge is to consider you don't even know this person. You say, well, I've worked with them for, excuse me, I've never been healthier. I've worked with this person for years. Of course I know him. I would dare say you think you know him. You're familiar with his behaviors and the roles that you interact with him, but being familiar with his behaviors is in no way knowing him. In my opinion, in a relationship, in order to actually begin to know someone, you have to be in a very emotionally intimate, romantic partnership for at least 6 months, rather than seeing each other in limited capacities at work and even friendship. So after 6 months of essentially intense living together, only then, and sometimes it's more than 6 months, but only then does the intoxication of infatuation begin to wear off. And the intoxication of infatuation, that's what makes us delusional. That's what makes us believe that the person who I'm looking at is actually who I think I'm looking at. So perhaps the idea of, I don't know him, is something to consider. And if that's true for you, then you can consider, well, what's my heartache about? Who am I really in love with? And yeah, who's my heart hurt over every day that I look at him and I can't have him? And I look at other guys and they all fall short. I would dare say who your heart aches over is the perfect guy that you made up in your mind. And if that's true, then I would ask you to just be aware. Who is this guy you made up in your mind? You perhaps consider listing out everything about this man that you think he is, and that you think he would be for you in a relationship if his wife just magically left him. And I would guess that is the man that you've genetically engineered in your own mind, that you're sort of grieving the loss of, the loss of what never was with him. Romeo and Juliet Syndrome. We call Romeo and Juliet a love story. I believe that there is no love in Romeo and Juliet. I think there is desperate infatuation. I think Romeo and Juliet are both delusional about being delusional. I kind of paid attention to Romeo and Juliet. I think I was a freshman in high school. Barely paid attention to anything. But anyway, that's beside the point. My understanding of the story is each of their families basically said to the Romeo and Juliet, you can't have the other. They're from the family we don't associate with. So the phenomenon of you can't have them. What you resist persists. The more you tell me I can't have him, the more I want him. I want thou who I cantest haveth. And because they couldn't have each other, they could idealize the heck out of each other. Romeo and Juliet, I would guess, thought they were dying for each other. At the end of this story, they commit suicide. Don't recommend that. And if you haven't read this story, then I just ruined it for you. But anyway, I don't think they were dying for each other. I don't think they were dying for the love. I think they were dying in order to dedicate themselves to preserving the idea that their story about each other was true. If Romeo and Juliet, if the story kept going, if they didn't kill themselves, but it kept going for a matter of months, maybe years at the most, but I would guess months, Romeo and Juliet wouldn't be known as a love story. That the idea that each other was perfect for them likely would have dissolved through intimacy, reality. The more infatuation we have, the less intimacy we have. So intimacy has a beautiful way of very frustratingly burning away the intoxicating fog of infatuation, in my experience. So that would have happened for Romeo and Juliet, I would predict. And if somehow you magically had your boss, you guys were together, I would guess a few months you'd look at him and say, "You're not who I thought you were. What's wrong with you?" That's where intimacy begins to happen. Am I here to connect with who this person actually is? Or was I only in it to try and connect with who I want them to be, who I thought they were, who the knight in shiny armor was in my imagination? So that's a consideration here. Truly, it's an idea, I'm proposing an idea to you of looking at your own delusion, looking at the man your imagination has perhaps created, and the relationship you have with that mythical man. One more consideration that you might care to entertain: if this is a repeated pattern for you, if it's happened in the past, boss or otherwise, doesn't matter, but just kind of a guy who's off limits and the whole Romeo and Juliet phenomenon happens, I can't have him, therefore I want him, I don't truly know him, therefore I can convince myself he's perfect. If this pattern has been repeated or does repeat going on into your future, then I would ask you to see it as essentially a defense mechanism to connection. If it becomes a repeated pattern, then my experience says we unconsciously become very interested in a person who we know we can't have because we crave the safety of staying disconnected from people. But if I crave connection with people I can have, well, that becomes very dangerous to a part of me that feels threatened by connection, because I can actually have connection with people I can have connection with. So you can just pay attention to that in the back of your mind. With all that said, thank you for allowing me to really challenge your story. I haven't been affirming to you your love, your heartache at all. And I appreciate you letting me speak from my heart to actually challenge you rather than perhaps placate you. I don't even know what placate means, but it felt like the right place to use it. Thank you all for checking out this video, and I'll look forward to talking with you next time.